another webinar session of entrepreneurial training, one-on-one mentoring to create space for the entire empowerment of Indigenous businesses. The program, I don't think I've mentioned this too many times before, but I should. The program is funded by the Songhees Nation, the Victoria Native Friendship Center, Songhees Innovation Center, and Van City has additional support. So we thank our supporters and funders, and we thank everybody who has been part of the webinar series. We'd like to do an acknowledgement before we get started with the workshops. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge with great respect the traditional territory of the Lekwungen people, whose land this program is based, and the Songhees, Esquimalt, and Wasanic peoples, whose historic relationship continues on with this land to this day. We thank you all for attending, virtually from different traditional territories you reside, and we have people really from all over BC, not only southern Vancouver Island, but central northern Vancouver Island and the mainland. So the program is being extremely well received, and we appreciate that. We're very fortunate tonight to have guest facilitator Lex Dunn, who you will meet in a couple of minutes. Lex Dunn is president of Ethic Marketing, founded in 2013, but Lex has over 30 years in business with regional, national, international clients, a great depth of knowledge. And I know this personally. I've been working with Lex for a number of years. Great depth of knowledge in branding, marketing, advertising, and communications. And he's worked with numerous Indigenous organizations and communities in Nova Scotia, Quebec, and British Columbia. And as a matter of fact, Lex assisted me in preparing the entrepreneurial training manual for the BC Aboriginal First Nations. And I think it's on the website, and he does an amazing job. Lex, tonight we'll be talking about communications and networking. Communications is a critically important skill, and he'll go over it with you. Lex is also a theater coach and an acting coach. He's been on television. He's been on movies. So everything that he talks about tonight, you will probably have the second workshop with him tomorrow night, where he will be doing improv acting, play acting classes. And it's really, theatrics are a really important part of business, developing your persona, presenting yourself to others, etc. So today and tomorrow are really different type of webinars, and I think you will get a lot out of them. That having been said, I am going to put his PowerPoint on. Let's see, where it is, communication and networking. And I will wave my magic wand and turn Lex into a presenter. So hopefully the technology will work. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Give him a second to come on board. And I will sit and enjoy tonight's workshop and tomorrow and take lots of notes, because Lex is a really good trainer, really good facilitator, and just have fun. Take care.
Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me? If you can't hear me, I was going to say something really stupid. If you can't hear me, tell me. Yeah. Okay. Never mind. Let's get started. I'm assuming that if anybody could see my mouth moving and not hear me, you would be typing in something. So I'm going to assume that we're good to go. So communication in marketing and entrepreneurialism. All the heaviest lifting is done by you guys having your ideas, building your business, Sorry, just things coming in. Yes. So the heaviest lifting, you guys, you've come up with the idea. You've gone out there, you've researched, you've worked, you have spoken to the money people, you've secured loans or investors, and all of those things. And now it's about to launch time. And this is where communication comes in, because it's no good having the best idea in the world if you don't communicate it well. Think of Einstein. If he tried to explain the depth of the theory of relativity, it would take a long time. So he shortened it down to a really, really pithy little saying called E equals mc squared. And if you're in that business, you know what that the people who do that, what that means. So what is communication? Well, here are the key things to remember as an entrepreneur. And you hear this all the time. You hear a lot of people talking about business to business or business to consumer. And it's important to remember that you are a person or people, and you are speaking to another person or people. You can't speak to a business. You can't speak to a building. You can't speak to a corporate entity. People can only talk with people. And you don't talk to markets. You can't talk to a market. What does that even mean? First, you have to identify your market, which we'll talk about later. But you can't talk to everybody. You can only talk to one person at a time. Throughout history, cultures have had storytellers with which you are all very familiar with. And a good storyteller thinks in their head that they're telling a story to one person, or they tell the story sequentially to one person. You'll see them, a good public speakers will do this as well when they get on stage. They will find someone in the audience to look at. So they'll look at them and they'll address part of their presentation, and then they'll break and they'll find somebody else over there and they'll speak to them, and they'll do this. And the reason you do that is so you don't get people kind of looking out as I'm doing now, kind of just looking out there. You have no idea what I'm looking at, and it feels disconnected from you because I'm not looking at you. Now I'm looking at you again by looking at the camera. The other thing too is that good communication is a dialogue, not a monologue. And it's really, really important to remember that. Jay has said it, and other presenters earlier in this have said the same thing. Avoid talking about yourself to yourself. And Jay listening to the guy in waste management. Sometimes you have to listen to the guys in waste management because it's important to listen. And that's what makes communication. Communication is always a two-way street. Right? Communication can be, in this business, it is verbal, spoken, it can be visual, it can be visual in terms of the written word. It can be visual in terms of brochures, websites, video. Communication can be visual and very effective. Actually, visual communication is very, very effective, especially now in 2020. It's fast overtaking print in any form. When I say print, just about in any form, including online print. It can be physical. It means you're there one-on-one. You're with people in a room, or even a person. So that's you have the physical proximity, and that is also a form of communication. We'll get getting more into that tomorrow night, in terms of being aware of your physical presence in a room and with people, and in terms of what you may be communicating when you may be communicating something you don't wish to communicate because of body language. And how we position ourselves is very important. As you see, I keep looking. I'm trying to look at each of you. Now, I can, if I don't want to do that, if I just want to talk, I can do this. I did that a little bit, and I can do this, or I can read off the screen instead of looking at you to talk to you. And this is a camera technique. This comes from acting. Is that if you want to speak to somebody in the audience, you look in the camera. If you watch TV, they all do it. Like all the presenters, like the Stephen Colbert's, the Bill Maher's, whoever you like to watch, they look at the camera because the people the other end are looking at the TV screen. And when you look into the camera, it looks as though you're actually looking into that person's eyes. So in this day, we're going to later on tonight, we're going to look at called the COVID communication. But this is something to bear in mind if you're going to be doing Zooming and things like that. Even though we are hopefully reopening the economy, I think Zoom is going to be with us for a long time, or Zoom type things. And of course, communication can also and often is very strongly cultural. And good marketers use their culture to their advantage. Before I talk about the indigenous culture, I'll a couple of examples on a global scale. About probably 25 years ago, I know it's not new. Paul Hogan, he became Crocodile Dundee, from the bloke from Australia. He had this whole thing going on about being from Australia, and he even did advertisements for the Australian Board of Tourism when he said, "Come on down, we'll throw another shrimp on the barbie. It's fair dinkum." And the whole spot that he did was in an Australian accent, and that was using, and he really bumped up his Australian accent because he was trying to convey that Australia is different from anywhere else in the world. And come on down, have a good time. We eat different. We call it different things. It's kind of fun. Come on down. And it was extremely effective use of cultural gravitas, of cultural weight. Britain has done it. France has done it. And if you're in the tourism industry, or even if you're not in the tourism industry, if part of your market is going to be selling something that is authentically indigenous to non-indigenous markets, non-indigenous people, then using that authenticity, and I don't mean using it in a bad sense, I mean being who you are and using that to show your point of differentiation. Very powerful, very strong. Not everybody can do it. I was working with the Heiltsuk Nation near Bella Bella, working with them on some tourism plans that again got waylaid by COVID. So we'll see what happens when those pick up. And it was again very, very, very strong. And if you are in the tourism aspect, if that's part of what your business is, this is a really, really good time. I know that everybody's worried about what's going to happen to tourism right now. And my supposition is that a lot of the, quote, mass tourism is still going to suffer from some time. I think there are going to be fewer people going to Venice, fewer people going to Barcelona. But I think there's going to be more people who are going to be looking for real, not the place where everybody has been going for the last 40 or 50 years, to the point where both Venice and Barcelona actually want to shut down their tourism industries. People, I think, are going to be looking, and the research bears this out, that people are looking for real experience, authentic experience, not recreated, not Hollywoodized versions of it. And that includes every aspect of tourism, from merchandise all the way through to the experiences. So it's a really, really good time. I think it's a really, really good time. And I know that the Aboriginal Tourism Association in BC has been doing an absolutely fantastic job of marketing tourism. They've been really, really doing well. Communication is a vital part of building your business. It's, as I said, it's one thing to have the idea. Now you have to communicate it. And it's an equally vital part of networking. Because before you can go out and network and talk to people, you have to know what you're going to say, and you have to be consistent in what you say. That brings me to, we've heard it said now that you've heard the adage, the medium is the message, and you hear a lot of people now talking about digital and online. Digital and online is important, but that of itself is not communication. It is a method. It is a means of communication. Online communication or social media, they're all fine, but I have been noticing in the last 5 to 10 years, a lot of clients saying, I just have to get my image up and get it on social media, get it on Instagram, get it on Facebook, get it on Twitter, get it whenever, and all my problems will be solved. Without giving any real thought as to, well, that's fine. You have the delivery mechanism, but what are you delivering? And that's where it should start. Before you say, well, I'm doing Facebook. Well, that's good. But what are you going to say when you're there? That's key. You got to work out what you want to say thoroughly. And you need to get laser focused on what your there's so many different terms for this. Some people call it a unique selling proposition. It comes down to what you've heard Jay has said this often, the WIIFM, what's in it for me? That is absolutely key in communication as well. So how you get there, you start with a communications brief. And then you work from the strategic to the tactical. So your first thing is to say, what do I stand for? What does my company stand for? What is it that I want to do globally? And how do I gear my communication to it? And then the tactical aspect is, okay, so how do I deliver that in video? How do I deliver it online? How do I deliver it on Facebook? How do I deliver it on Twitter in 140 characters or 280 characters now? And how do I deliver it? But you have to start with the strategic first. If you have any questions, by the way, as we go through, just let me know, and I'll stop and I'll answer them. I'll answer them now. And if there's anything again you want, as Jay's mentioned, I mean, I'm available through Jay on mentoring and advice later. So I'll just put up some information there. We'll go over that again later. So we're going to start with something called the communications brief, and that's where effective communication starts. It's because what it does is it makes you focus in what's relevant to your customer or your client or your consumer and what's relevant to them. So you don't talk to yourself about yourself. How many times have you seen, we have been in business since 1945. Or we are proudly British Columbian, or we pride ourselves on doing this. We. That is we see it all the time. You can see it online. You can see it in television advertising, and let all your competition do that because they're just talking about what's important to them. You have to talk about what's important to your customer, your consumer. Solve people problems, not business problems. When you're dealing, if you're working with another smaller company or another entrepreneur, you're both people. You're going to be wanting the same thing, and that's to do as well as you can. But even when you're working with a bigger company or selling to a larger company, you are still marketing to people. So if you're dealing with a middle manager, what does that middle manager want? Yeah, he wants the company to do well, but what he really wants is for him to be able to do well, for his boss to notice him, so he gets the promotion, he gets more money, he climbs up the corporate ladder. And I'm not being cynical. It's true that people want to get ahead. So it's important. What's important is something that's important to people. So solve people problems. And this is when you're doing this. If you're building a website, don't put your mission statement in front of the public. It's your mission statement, not the public's. I have seen mission statements. I've seen mission statements online that have said, our mission is to become the largest widget manufacturer in Atlantic, Canada or North America. As a consumer, all I think that is fine. You're reaching into my pocket for you. What's in it for me? Back to Jay. What's in it for me? Yo, hey, what you doing? I don't care. You want to be number one. I want something. Give me something. Give me something good. So your mission statement is your mission statement. Your vision statement is your vision statement. Find interesting ways of taking what's in your mission and in your vision and make it relevant to your consumer, to your customer. Focus on you, not I. I was working when I was in Montreal. We were working on we had a credit card company. It was a direct mail campaign, and we looked at it. It was just a letter, just a letter went out. And that's the way things were done. That was before the internet. And I looked at the letter, and I went, and it was all we. And I gave it to the writer, and I said, turn it around. I don't want to see the first person. I don't want to see I or we. I only want to see you. And so she took it. She rewrote the whole thing to say, rather than saying we offer you this, it was you receive this. You get, not we give, but you get. It's saying the same thing rather than we give you 5,000 bonus points. Okay, it's talking about how good we are, as opposed to you get 5,000 points, 5,000 bonus points, which means you get a free trip the moment you sign up, or something like that. It just flips it around. Response tripled. Orders, sales tripled by just turning the focus around from we to you. This is the communications brief. Now this is going to be made available. Jay tells me from the marketing material. So I'm not going to go through it in detail. I'm going to take you through it just quickly to give you the idea of the questions that you need to be asking yourself so that you can develop your own effective communications. And you have to start at the beginning. What is the current market situation? What's going on right now? If you are going to be, say, your business idea is to open a new golf course. The most spectacular golf course is beautifully along the coastline somewhere, and you're going to attract people from around the world. Great. What's the background of the current market forces? You can say, yes, we're in a highly competitive field, and there are 35 golf courses within an hour's drive of ours. And however, we're the only one that's right on the coast or whatever. So you just set that up. So what is the situation? This is sometimes the longest thing. This can be sometimes 2-3 paragraphs, because you really have to put up what's going on. It's what's going on in the market, what's going on with their communication. Are there major campaigns going on that you have to compete with? Are they television campaigns or radio or print or online or a combination of all of those things? So that's the current market situation. And then what's the role for the communications and advertising? What do you want to accomplish? And this is not about, again, you will often hear, well, what's the role of the advertising? To make sales. No, that's the role of marketing. The role of marketing is to get sales. The role of advertising and communication is to actually provoke a behavior you want. You can't make somebody, there's no such thing as behavior as sales. The behavior is, I want that. I'm going to buy that. That is interesting to me. So what is it you want to do? What do you want to accomplish? Do you want to change an attitude? We've seen advertising like that. Right now, one of look at the Me Too movement. The Me Too movement started as a lateral. It started as on social media, and it took over the world. Now that is incredibly strong branding, incredibly strong success in changing attitudes. So it may be, how do we change attitudes about, again, if I go back to tourism, how do you change attitudes about BC weather? Well, you can't change the weather, but what you can say is what makes this place incredibly special is don't think of fog as something thick and dense and you can't see to. Think of the fog around around Haida Gwaii as part of the culture, from the mists, the ghost bear, all of these things. So it becomes a plus, it becomes a positive, it becomes something that is inherent to who you are. You can't help your environment, and you can't always help the environment in which you're selling. So what you have to do is you have to make it part of your reasons for people to buy from you. One of the best examples of this, and I keep hitting on tourism because it's a very tough market. The province of Newfoundland for years did advertise in like every other tourism destination, come and do this, and go whitewater rafting or hike or climb or jump or sit down, stand up, fight. They used to call it the commandvertising. Come and do this. Newfoundland turned it around, and they showed Newfoundland without any attractions per se, other than the beauty of the place. And they had one of the best lines they had in one of their ads was about as far away from Disneyland as you can get. That line was absolutely brilliant. And in essence, it sums up their whole campaign. They weren't trying to apologize for the fact that there are no amusement parks or Mickey Mouse or anything like that. They took it and made it, guess what? No Mickey Mouse here. Oh boy, oh no, where am I to live? So next thing, who is your target audience? Who are you talking to? Is there more than one? For example, you may talk, for example, going back to the golf thing, one of your audiences may be the golfer. The other audience may be the golfer's family, right? So come to this great golf course we have, in the Okanagan. Come to this, and if you don't golf, or for your kids that don't golf, or your spouse that doesn't golf, look at all these other things. So you have two audiences, but you have to find something within your product that can appeal to both. In that case, now often there's only one audience, which is fine. But if there is more than one, what's their importance? Who drives the decision? For example, with golf, who drives that decision? Is it the golfer, or is it the spouse of the golfer who says, okay, if we're going to go golfing, I get to choose where we're going because I don't want to just hang around twiddling my thumbs while you're off golfing. So we're going to choose the spot that I want to go to, or something like that. So these are the things you have to look at. Who's the decision maker in your audience? In the packaged goods field, the decisions are made, 75 to 85% of the decisions are made by the woman in the household. So you market to them. And that includes what would be considered the male product. Razor blades. Most women are the ones who buy razor blades in the house. And for men, shaving cream, things like that. So these are the things you can find out. You can research this stuff online. Find out who your advertising is to make sure you're talking to the right person. And then again, and then you focus in on the single most important point you expect people to take from the communications of the advertising. In other words, if you could only say one thing to them about why me, why us, why my company, why my product, why my golf course, why my community, why my tourism destination, why me? If you could only say one thing, what would it be? And I tend to think of marketing not as a pyramid, which you will often see somewhere, but I see it more circular. It's more like a wheel, with the single most important point being kind of the hub of that wheel, and then all the spokes around it that make that wheel turn. So this is the most important thing to answer properly. It's the one that will take you the longest. It's because you really have to focus in on what that single most important point is. You've heard of the elevator pitch. This is an abbreviated version of that. I actually used to call it the cocktail party pitch, or the business gathering pitch. And if you go to one of those and there's all kinds of people in the room and everybody's there and everybody's trying to mingle and talk and things like this, if you have this answer ready to go, so you might only have 10 seconds with somebody before they're looking over their shoulder saying, okay, who else is in the room that I need to talk to? Oh, look, there's him, there's her. I need to talk to them. So you might have a few seconds. So what is it? What is that single most important thing? I would argue that getting that down to one sentence, it has to be one sentence, and not one sentence joined together by a bunch of ands and buts and whens and so's and this. one concise sentence. For example, if you had a golf course on top of Mount Washington, there isn't one there, but I mean, that might be what's the single most important point. This is the most spectacularly beautiful view of any golf course on the West Coast. It may be something that, but it just as an example. Oops. Okay, so we had that previous one. What is the single most important point? Okay, and it says, okay, why? What are the reasons for that? What makes it the single most important point? Why should if you're going to tell me, if that's the single most important point, then you have that. So if the single most important point is the one that grabs the people's attention. Then so you engage them with that. Oh, that's interesting. Tell me more about that, or how does that work? And it could be, maybe your business is making either authentic indigenous clothing, or really, or newer types of clothing based on indigenous design or something like that. So if you say that nobody else is fusing traditional with style, nobody's fusing that could be the single most important thing that you want to say. The perfect fusion of tradition and contemporary design. Again, for example, I'm making, okay, well, why? And then, well, here are the product features, because we use the imagery from this nation, but we've also borrowed the materials that this nation used a lot, and we've looked at everything. We brought in new. We're working with new, really well-trained indigenous designers to bring this all together. So then those are your reasons. And if we thought of what I just said, with the single most important point is the hub, these are now the spokes, right? These are now the spokes of the wheel. And then your brand personality. So this is, if your product or your service was a person other than you, because in some cases you will actually be the personality of your company, depending on what you're doing. Service-based companies tend to be more based on personality of the entrepreneur, as opposed to the product. You think of Martha Stewart, right? She was her brand. So sometimes you are the brand. If you've noticed real estate, right? Real estate. Every real estate agent has a picture of themselves. Don't know why, but they do, because in a sense, every real estate agent is his own brand, or they will borrow some brand equity from whichever parent company they happen to be with. So what is your personality? If your product was a person, what would she or he look like, sound like? When I worked in Air Canada, they were making a switch. They were trying to shift the perception of Air Canada from kind of being stodgy and old. This is many years ago. And the old persona for Air Canada was three-piece suit, pinstripe three-piece suit, tie, button-down, white shirt. Then they realized that was too narrow a definition of their market, and they were losing people. So then they said, well, what if it was a guy wearing a nice shirt, a blazer, and a pair of good jeans? Sorry, I'm not seeing that. Jay, I'm sorry, I'm not seeing the chats coming in. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm told that I have chats coming in, but I do not see them. Oh, no.
Can you hear me? Click on the settings and click on moderated.
Story settings. Where's? I'm sorry, Jay. Where is it?
And you'll see settings on the right.
Hang on.
And click on moderated. Anyways, if you can't find them, I'll put them up on the screen afterwards.
Okay, sorry. All right, sorry, guys. Yes, I heard about New Zealand having zero COVIDs up today, for 2 weeks, but they're not going to open their borders yet. video visit. That's really, really interesting. Certainly is part of marketing. But maybe you're right. Maybe there's some really, really interesting ways of getting it, like a good videographer, so that in essence, what you could be doing like a mini documentary on your tourism destination, especially if it is one where it's more passive. You can't. It's hard to do something, for example, on an activity-based, purely activity-based one like golf. I mean, you could show a golf tournament, but I mean, I'm not sure how long that would relate to. But if you're on other products and services in a tourism destination, you could certainly do it as a travelogue. There's an old phrase from way, way, way back. All native ash boxes. Yes, yeah. These are the things. This is, people are. It's unfortunate the word authenticity has become it's become a catchphrase in marketing and advertising, and it's a real shame, because when it becomes a catchphrase, it's going to get overused to the point as to render it virtually useless, and so overdone. But it is a really useful word, because authenticity, you hear everybody trying to use authenticity, even those who are hopelessly inauthentic. You hear Pepsi trying to talk about being authentic. You're sugar water. How authentic are you going to get? You're not, but everybody's trying to find the authenticity of their brand. Coke has done a reasonably job at it, as we saw from Pepsi a few years ago when they did that awful spot where drink a Coke and save the world for protesters. I mean, that was just, boy, was it bad. It was just so bad. But people are craving authenticity in their experiences, whether it's a travel experience. More and more now, people are looking at products to aid an experience. So if you are doing something, if you are doing something, for example, with the indigenous boxes or containers or things like that, what story can you add to that? What it's the authenticity of that is going to make it more desirable than going down to Pier 21. I know they're almost gone. So find out what's real and authentic. And I honestly, the indigenous entrepreneurial market is uniquely positioned to be able to offer that, because you can truly use the word authentic authentically. All right. What's your tone and manner? Right? Do you want to have something that's elevated text? Do you want to sound, do you want to sound a little lofty, like a Morgan Freeman voiceover? Do you want to be young and hip? Do you wish to be, do you want to be irreverent? Do you want to be funny? Do you want to be serious? These are your tone and manner. This is your personality. So if think of it as a person, your person, if your person were, if your brand or product or services were a person, how would they dress? What would they look like? What would they sound like? And then that helps you keep it real and helps you keep it human. And good marketing, good communication, you're going to hear me say this over and over again, and I'm sorry, I'm going to bore you to death, is the humanity is everything. The marketing is about all of the science. It's the numbers, it's the demographics, it's the widgets, the cost per thousand, the cost of acquisition. That's all the marketing aspect. Communication and persuasion is an art. The other part of what used to be called gross rating points, GRPs, in television advertising, that's the science. That's the data part. Communication is the art. It's the heart and soul. The years ago, they asked what makes the Beatles so special, and they said, well, you've got the four of them, and you've got John. John was the brains. Then you had Paul, who was the heart of the Beatles. Then you had George, who was the soul of the Beatles. And somebody said, well, what about Ringo? Well, Ringo was the flesh and blood, and there's a lot of truth to that. You know what I mean? So it's the same here. Is with the marketing is the flesh and blood, but the heart and the soul is in the communication. What other things when you're doing a communication? What are the specific elements? What are your brand colors? What kind of imagery are you going to use? What's your logo look like? And when it comes to images and logo and the branding elements, I'm going to speak more on that later, but I'll just put it in there now. Spend some money. And you will hear people say, you know what, you can go online and you can get a logo done by Fiverr. You can get a logo done for 10, 15, 20 bucks. If that's all your business is worth to you, go ahead and get a 15, 20 buck logo. But if your business is really as special as you think it is and how you feel it is, then spend the money, get a professional logo, either hire a professional photographer or buy professional quality photographs that you have the exclusive, that you can buy the exclusive rights to or get the exclusive rights to. Because I was at an ad agency, and we were doing something. We needed an ad, and the client didn't want to pay. It was about sports and something or other. I can't remember the exact. It's been a long time, but the client didn't want to pay for photography. So we found the stock image, and we went out in that ad with that stock image, and within the same time, that image appeared in 3 other ads, all for different products or services. So when you don't own the images, anybody can use it, and they can show up anywhere. It would be worse if one of them actually had been a direct competitor, because then who in the world out in the audience would have been able to tell the difference between the two? So if you can, either spend as much as you can afford to spend, but avoid the $5 freebies off the internet. You've heard the expression, you get what you pay for. You get what you pay for. Same thing when it comes to writing. Hire a writer, a professional writer. And yes, you can. You can. I've seen this. You can find places online that will do it. There are factories, and I literally mean writing factories around the world. A lot of them are in India, and there are the writers are pretty good, but they are writing the English that they know, which was the English they grew up with. In this case, in India, it's probably not going to be the kind of English that you would use, or the kind of English that would be used in Canada or here. So spend the money so that the voice is your voice. And that's key, because that's what your copy is, whether it's printed or spoken. It's your voice. So make sure that it is your true voice. Okay, so that's the most important part of communication, what we just addressed there. Absolutely the key part, because that's the heart of it. That's the living, beating heart of communication. So now we're going to go through the different communications categories, and we'll look at them. There's something here that some of you, I don't know what your age ranges are, but there used to be something called print advertising. You don't see it much anymore, but yeah, it's still out there. There is print advertising. It's not used as much as it used to be, for the main reason that people aren't reading newspapers. Physical newspapers. Everything's online. So print is no longer. When I say broadcast, when I mean in broadcast, it's broadcast and online video are similar, except when you're doing broadcast, if you're doing a TV spot, you've got 30 seconds or 15 seconds or 60 seconds exactly. You can't do 61 seconds. So there's broadcast. Broadcast is television and radio. Television is ridiculously expensive. So you won't hear me recommending it. Yeah, the big guys use it because they can afford to. Coca-Cola's, just their marketing, just their television, never mind their whole marketing budget, just their television marketing budget is hundreds of $millions a year. So for most people, it's a little bit beyond reach. Although if you have a narrow enough niche and you can find your audience on a particular channel or a particular program and just buy that one program, it can still be effective in minimal buys. But it is expensive. It's more expensive than the others. Radio in and of itself isn't that expensive, but the problem with radio is that there are so many radio stations in each market that you can't effectively cover. I'm not sure about Vancouver, but I can tell you, for example, the Halifax and the Toronto market, or the Halifax and Ottawa markets were similar, and the number one radio station in Halifax was CBC, which doesn't take advertising, so it didn't help advertise as much. But CBC had 13% of the listening market, but they were number one because there were all of these other stations had 11, 10, 10, 9, 8, whatever. So if you want to reach your entire market, you can't just buy one station. You have to buy 4, 5, 6, 7 stations. If your product or service is a mass product. If it's a niche product, you might be able to find your niche market on one of those. But again, it's very, very tough. Collateral things, brochures, leave behind cards, anything with your name logo on it. Brochures are still effective. You still see them in the visitor information centers across Canada, across the world. Some people still like to be able to take those things with them. They're in decline, of course, as these things now. Most people in more than 60% of people who, for example, in the travel market, more than 60% of people who arrive in a destination use their phones to find local attractions and local points of interest, where they used to come in and get the literature out of a visitor information center. Centers are still used, but it is shifting. Everything's shifting towards digital communications. Outdoor billboards, bus boards in cities, highly effective for the right. It's highly effective for the right product, for the right market. It can have a huge impact if you do it well. And doing it well means having a headline of no more than 6 to 8 words, one image, no long. Here's my name. Here's my address. Here's my telephone number. Here's my URL. This is how fast doing how we present outdoor. If the camera was the client, what we used to do is we would stand here and we would do this. And we would say, how much of that could you see? And he said, well, I got the headline and the picture. I said, that's right. And that's how much time you have when people are driving. Again, so you have to think of how media is consumed. I saw an absolutely beautiful billboard. It was absolutely great, but you could not take it in when you were driving past it. There was too much going on. It made a great print ad, fantastic magazine ad, terrible billboard because you couldn't see it all. Guerrilla, and we're going to have a whole section on that next week on guerrilla marketing. I'll give you a couple of quick examples tonight. This is where your creativity can make up, an abundance of creativity can make up for a dearth of cash. I was involved again in Halifax. In the middle of Halifax, there's a big, it's called the Halifax Commons. It's just a big open space beside the Citadel. There's nothing there. It's just, in the summer, there are baseball diamonds and stuff like that. So I was working on behalf of the Lung Association of Nova Scotia, and their first race of the year, which was the end of April. And if you've ever been to the East Coast, you never know what you're going to get. Even then, you could have snow or you could not. But this was the first fundraising race, and they would make money by getting people to join the race, pay entry fee, and they would run 10K and around downtown Halifax on a certain route. We didn't have any money, being a not-for-profit, so had this idea, and we got these. I have to back up. There we go. Even bigger than this, huge cutouts of sneakers, just like the sole of the sneaker, and we attached those to stakes and poles. So these were 4 feet, 4 feet by 2 feet. They looked like giant footprints, and so we started marketing in February and March when there was snow down. And all we did was we took these things. We had a left foot and a right foot, and we just walked across the commons with these things as if somebody had walked across or run across the commons, but somebody really big like a giant. We didn't put up any identifier where it came from. We just put these up. The next day, people noticed it. They called the media going, what's going on? And there was all of this stuff. Where did these footprints come from? What do they mean? Is it Stonehenge? What's going on? And it generated all of this press. And then we let it slip out saying the Lung Run. Would have been 2014, the Lung Run 2014. And later, when the snow was gone, we did the same thing with chalk. We put chalk footprints along the running route, and then by that point we identified it as part of the Lung Run. But it didn't cost. It cost the price of 2 styrofoam cutouts to make the imprints in the snow, and the free publicity it generated. We had the highest number of applicants or participants. We had the highest number of participants we'd had in the previous few years. So that's an example of guerrilla marketing. And it can be fun. It can be a lot of fun just sitting around thinking up crazy stuff. And as I said, we're going to have a whole section on that later on. So you have social and online. So you have online video, which I'm a huge proponent of. I'm a huge proponent of YouTube. Get a YouTube channel, make video, make good video. So you can YouTube, Vimeo, Facebook, and more is becoming a huge place for video. It's starting to rival YouTube in some areas in terms of what's going up there. Twitter, you can put a video on Twitter and Instagram. Huge. Sorry, I couldn't help it. I had to say it. It's huge, powerful medium. But you've also got online banner ads, a big box, and the pay-per-clicks. There are some things. I still think that there's a lot of value to social media advertising. Unfortunately, what's happened over the last 5 to 10 years, and I think Chris may have covered some of this too, is that it used to be on Facebook, if you had 500 friends, whenever you posted something, all 500 of your friends saw it. That was kind of the point of it, right? They've changed the algorithms now that they see which of your friends turn up and look at your site. So, and they start narrowing who those algorithms are going to reach. I mean, if you've seen it, if you've posted anything, you'll sometimes see from Facebook. If you gave us $25, we could boost your reach by 500 people or whatever. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. I can't read and talk at the same time. Jay has made an art of it. So it's yes, right. Social media. So what Facebook has done is they've changed their algorithms so that when you post something, a smaller number of the people who are listed as your friends actually see it. Until you give them the 25 or 50 or however much money, then you start boosting. But they're still just boosting to your own friends. So this because they want to make money, and they're going to make money off of you buying advertising rather than you getting a whole lot of free advertising. even though that's how they first presented themselves as, hey, we're the free media, we're the social media, we're free, we're cheap. Well, they're not free. They're still not as expensive as the other ones, but they're not free. So be aware of that. Be aware of the fact that if you post something out there, you're not even reaching all of the people who have agreed to watch your stuff. Okay. Influencers. You've probably heard about this, and there's this whole sort of submarket of people who are, for whatever reason, become famous for being famous, or they become famous online for being famous online, and they're known as influencers. And some of these people make outrageous amounts of money simply by saying, "I will mention your product to my 500,000 or 5 million or 75 million or whatever their following is." And obviously, the more followers they have, the higher price that they can command. These now are the influence of influencers is actually starting to wane, because a lot of big companies actually started investigating and started measuring whether the influences were actually influencing sales. And guess what? Not so much. Right? So I may follow somebody who's famous because, look, I'm following Kim Kardashian or Kyle Jenner or whomever. But I'm not going to buy something just because they say so. It goes back. It used to be called celebrity endorsement. Celebrity endorsements and advertising were given up for the most part, a long time ago, because people said, well, of course they're going to say they like it. They're being paid to. The same thing is happening now with influencers. Their credibility is hurting because people realize that they're getting paid, and if they get paid enough, they'll say anything. Also, there is lots, not so much on smaller startups and entrepreneurial sized businesses, but there is an enormous amount of ad fraud online, especially the pay-per-clicks. There are actually click bot farms, and all of their job is to go on and click, hit. And these are often run by the media companies that place the online ads. Well, we'll be your media buyer, and we'll place these for it. And then they get the bots, and they click on the bots, pay per click, because guess what? The more clicks that there are, the more money the media company gets paid for that. So you have to be very careful. There is a blog out by the guy by the name of Bob Hoffman. And the name of his blog, he has a website called The Ad Contrarian. I highly recommend you subscribe to his. He has a weekly short one-page newsletter that goes out every week, every Sunday, and he really keeps an eye on what's new in the world of social media. And it should be recommended viewing to anybody who's planning on being active in advertising on online and in social media. Highly recommended. All right, so we're up to 7 o'clock now, so we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and we'll pick up from there, moving along shortly into finishing up on communication and moving into how, now that we know what we're going to say, let's go out and network and get it in front of people. All right, so Jay, do you want to, whatever you have to do there to give everybody their bio break? This would be a good time for it.
We'll do a 5-minute break, and at 7:05, we will regroup, and Lex will continue on with his words of wisdom. So go do what you got to do. Get your drink. Go to whatever. I don't want to make any recommendations. Just go do your thing. Come back at 7:05 because we got a lot more stuff to cover.
Jay, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Are you going to be covering how to network, the art of networking?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that's how I've structured it. The first half is what to say, and the second half is now going out and saying it
Cool.
and forming your network.
Good, good. Yeah, pretty good so far. I'm enjoying it.
Good.
Good, good. You gotta learn to read and talk at the same time. Oh, it says, hi, Lex, you're not muted. Yes, we know that. Anyways, I'll let you carry on. I'm going to sign off again to turn off my mic.
Yeah,
be good. Have
Ted,
fun.
Thanks, Ted. It's Jay's fault. You'll hear that a lot from me over the rest of the night.
Ted's mentioned that it's hard to find a good J. I don't know if that's slang for something or it's a compliment. But I'll find out one way or the other. Thanks, Ted. Oh.
I think Ted is referring to the kind of J that you can get now that it's legal across the country. It's cannabis.
Oh, I see. Got it. Okay, I'm out of here again. Bye.
Where the heck were you in '69?
Let's see. Well, I was only 3 years old, so, you know. It'll be good. Thanks, Lex.
Okay. All right, is everybody back? Ready to go? Okay. So just wrapping up this last this section on how to write. We've talked about communications, but now again, writing for your customer in paid media. So this is your voice directly to your consumer or your customer. And we've already said this, write in the second person, you, never I or we, always you. Keep the focus on them. You're solving their problems. They're not there to solve your marketing problems or your business problems. You're there to solve their whatever their needs or desires are. You're there to solve their human problem, whether that's to another business person or to a consumer. So if you want to solve somebody else's problems, you have to talk to them. And again, Jay has iterated this in previous sessions. And again, it goes back to why. Why? When I used to train writers, they would, when I was creative director and I trained new writers, I became famous for, it's similar to Jay's WIIFM. Mine was a little bit more prosaic than that. I had two, WC. I would write, if they would say something, I would write WC, and it would stood for who cares? Really, who cares? You care. Is there any reason why the customer would care about this? We redesigned we were making cabinets. We redesigned the cabinet because now instead of it being 8 feet by 10 feet, it's now 8.1 feet by 10.6 feet or whatever. Nobody cares. Nobody. If it's important, then you say, now you get a bigger cabinet, so you can put more things that are important to you away. It's now talking about solving their problems. What's the benefit of that feature that you just said? People don't care about features, they care about benefits. That's why good car advertising will talk about how you feel when you're driving a car. You will hear you don't say we have improved the motor and all of this. They'll say it now goes from 0 to 60 in 3.4 seconds. And with the implied benefit being the rush of adrenaline. The axiom is, when your communication is you grab the heart, you sell the head. Right? So you have to get an emotional response, and that can be humor. It can be laughter. It can be tearjerker. It can be genuinely what's the word I'm looking for? Genuinely moving. But you grab the heart and you sell the head. And most good advertising that you'll see is based on that. And it's one of the other things that is very popular now that I'm going to mention a little bit going ahead, but I want to mention it here, and it's called storytelling. And storytelling now is, we used to call it long copy. Again, there's nothing new in storytelling style writing for business and advertising. It's been around for a long time. But now the other kind, the old sort of advertising writing is gone. When you say, "Get this fabulous, stupendous, it is amazing, it is the best thing you've ever seen." Yeah. All of that stuff, the fantabulous. Nobody buys that crap anymore, right? Nobody buys it, and it kind of was awful to have to write these things and using all of this absolutely ridiculous, blown out of the water. One of the nicest things that I saw recently was actually on the Indigenous Tourism Association of Canada site. It talked about it was to tell the story of somebody coming to Haida Gwaii for the first time in an Indigenous canoe with Indigenous people. And he was telling the story, and how moving this visitor found it, and the way he described of when the ocean-going canoe first hit the beach, and just the way he described the sound and all of the things that in the mist, and it was absolutely beautiful. And it did more, and at no time in that did he ever say, "You should come to Haida Gwaii too, because you will have a fabulous time." There was none of that stuff. Run, jump, catch a train, but just get here. It was none of that crap. It was honest. It was authentic. Going back to that word, and you can do, and that's what you need. That's what you need. You can tell stories about it, but the stories need to be engaging, and they need to be told to somebody. Nobody, again, and all of the cultures in the world that where storytelling and the oral tradition has been a major part. And none of that does the storyteller ever sit down and tell the stories about himself, right? Unless they can make that story relevant to the people around them. But usually people told the story about them, about the shared experience, about the shared connection, about the shared humanity, as it were. Or in this case, the shared business, the shared, it can be the shared benefits of a new product, the shared benefits of finding this great restaurant. You could write about a great restaurant without, again, pumping the heck out of the restaurant by just saying the attention to detail, and you describe the experience and the food. People want experiences more than they want products. And if they want a product, they usually want a product to help them enjoy an experience. If any of you have are doing anything in terms of fishing lodges or things like that, will you have a tackle shop? Will you have a place where you would sell rods, reels, and that sort of and that sort of thing? Would you have something? Would you have something like that? So if you do, then the reel and the rod is a means of them enjoying the experience of the main part of your business, which is taking them out to where the fish are. So the rod and the reel are your products, and it's a good money making adjunct to be able to do something like that. But even then, when they buy the rod and the reel, it's to enhance the experience they hope to have with catching fish. It's not about, oh, look, I've got a reel. Look, look, it spins. Oh, that's fun. Nobody does that. They go out there and they want to catch stuff with it. Okay, right for your customer. Social media. It shouldn't sound like advertising. It's storytelling more than selling, if we just went over. It's otherwise known as content marketing. If you're online, strong visual components. Over the years, I've worked with various golf courses, and there was one I worked with where the photography looked like they sent somebody out with a phone in the middle of the noonday sun and took pictures, and everything was flat, washed out. The other one hired a professional photographer, and that photographer didn't even go out on the course between the hours of 10:30 in the morning and 4 o'clock in the afternoon, because he knew that the best light was morning light and late afternoon light. And the difference, they were both beautiful courses. If you were there live, in either of them, you go, wow, this is a really beautiful course. But when he put it together and put it online, the one with the professional photography, there's no question if you looked at both, well, I'm going to that one. Look at that. How gorgeous is that? I see myself there. And good tourism and destination marketing is really about getting whoever's watching going, I want to be there. I either want to see that or I want to experience that, and some places are really good at this. And it's about more than just showing the beauty of the place. It's finding the going deeper and finding the next hook. There was an ad a few years ago, and I was doing research. For example, I was doing a campaign for Cape Breton Island, which is a small island off Nova Scotia. I don't know how well you know the East Coast, but it's sort of the heartland of the Celtic culture in Nova Scotia. And we one of these ads we did, we got a beautiful picture overlooking the Cabot Trail, absolutely stunning picture, and we had somebody there we had two people there, one with the guitar, one with the fiddle, and the headline just said, this is John Archie and Isaac. They speak English but play in Gaelic. Go figure. It just, all that did is it now becomes a story. It becomes a story about people and about culture, and not, oh, look at the pretty view. It tried to get into the human feel. There was one for Wyoming. When I was doing research for that, there was one for Wyoming, and it was this beautiful picture of one person on a horse, and just against these beautiful rock formations and things like that. And it's just, again, bearing in mind that this is really, and I'm going out on a limb here because you guys are really not the market to be probably explaining this ad, but bear with me, because they knew who their market was, and their market was, they were trying to get urban Americans to come out to Wyoming, out into the middle of the West, and people who didn't have that. And so this had this picture, and the headline just said, remember when you were a little kid and you wanted to grow up to be a cowboy? It did such a good job of going beyond just showing that, just showing the beautiful thing. It tapped into this American mythology of the lone rider, the pale rider, going into the wilderness on his own. And it was a hugely successful, and it was very, it was good advertising, because they went deeper. They went deeper than just the scenery. So strong visual components. The other thing you can do that really can help a lot now is user generation, right? This is when you get friends on Facebook, or people have, so they've either bought and used your product and really like it, or they've been to your destination, they've been to your golf course, whatever the case may be, and they post. And a lot of these people they're amateurs, but a lot of them are very good photographers and videographers. I saw one a couple of years ago for Nanaimo, and all it was some people jumping off a high place into a pool of water beside a waterfall. It was a great shot. It was a great picture. It was user generated. Big believer in that too. If you can, and just make sure that the ones you choose are good photographers and good writers. But it's very, very, very useful. Engage your reader. Don't preach at them. You can't tell somebody what to do. Otherwise, every ad in the world would be, buy this car, buy this product, come to this destination. You can't tell people what to do. You have to give them a reason to come. Another big thing, blog, and social media. And if you haven't got time to do it yourself, hire somebody to do it for you. Be prolific. Solicit again, user-generated blogs, and share everywhere. Website. It's more than an online catalog now, although it doesn't have the impact that it did, say 5 years ago, certainly not 10 years ago, but they're still key. So, spend some time. Again, website now, some of the technology is so good that you can't do your own. I know that Chris is a big fan of WordPress, and I've used WordPress in the past too. I have a new favorite one, and this is just my preference. I'm not paid by anybody to say this. I prefer Wix because I find it easier to use, more friendlier, more versatile, especially now they've come out with some new variations that are just absolutely spectacular what you can do. You can build a website now if you have and you can even have the Wix design one for you, and it's not bad. But if you can, again, the same thing, if you can afford a good designer, then engage one. But if you can't, find one of those that are good, that are used. So, and then finally on this, unpaid media, press releases. This is a really good one to get. This is what we used, again, how we got traction with those footprints in the snow was through the local newspapers and radio and television. If you can get somebody else to tell your story for free, I mean, that's golden. So when you're thinking of your communications, what can you do that is newsworthy? And it has to be newsworthy. You have to think when you put out a press release that you're not putting out the press release to the editor of the newspaper or the magazine or whomever. You're putting it out for their readers. So you try to write your press release almost as if it were a finished story for the readers, the end users. And that also makes it easier to sell, because that way the editors don't need to spend as much time on it. They don't have to write the story. They can read the press release, use what they need from it, and either edit it down to their size or take it to expand upon. But you have to think in terms of the newsworthiness, because again, if you're putting this out to somebody who's trying to sell magazines or newspapers or an online site or whatever, if they're trying to get readers, then they're trying to get readers because they want to earn money from it. So they are going to gravitate towards stories that they feel are going to be of interest to their readership. It's pretty straightforward. But again, when you think of that, always think of the end user, and don't start and stop with yourself. And I know, I'm saying it again. There you go. Right. And business to business, same thing. Solve your problem. A lot of people tell you that writing for business to business is different than writing to business to consumer. I'd say both cookies. You're right, because as I said, you can't write for a business. So business to business to me is silly. It's person to person. It's business person to business person. But it's people. You write for people. You solve human problems. You solve their problems. Right? LinkedIn is a really, really good B2B site. So if your business relies on business consumers, or again, in this case, business influencers, or a corporate market, if you do have, if again, I'm going to go back, if you have a golf course and you want to, you want to get BC Ferries to select your golf course for their next big corporate tournament or whatever. So you now have to convince somebody who's in the area that makes those decisions, but you're going to convince them by making them look like the hero. When you choose us, your boss is your boss and your employees are going to love this because they get this and they get this and they get this. And you're going to, with the subtext being, you're going to look really good. Your boss is really going to be happy. You're on the road to a promotion. You're solving a human desire or need, right? Give stuff away. Give stuff. It's you know what? Honestly, give stuff away. Don't give everything away, but give stuff away at the beginning to create buzz or interest. As a marketer, I'll often go out on Facebook and say, I'll do a free brand evaluation. You show me where your brand is, and I'll tell you honestly. And if it's good, I'll say, you know what? There's nothing I can do to help you. Your branding is fine. It's terrific. If it isn't, I would say, yeah, a little tweaking here and there, or you say, you know what, you really need to start again. But I would give the evaluation for free, and because it's hard being an entrepreneur. Money's tight for all of us, for everybody. So if I can get a taste of what somebody can offer me or deliver to me, and I can do that without a big outlay of money off the top, I'm all for that. Because I need to know before I make a financial commitment that I'm going to like, or that I'm going to like that I buy, or it's going to be useful to me. So don't be afraid to give away a little, not a lot. Don't give it all away. And finally, and this is key, this is the one a lot of people forget about, you are always in communication with a potential customer or a potential influencer, always. So when you're speaking to one person, you're speaking to many, because they will tell people and they will tell people and they will tell people. That's the whole basis of Facebook and the whole basis of social media, is that they told two friends and they told two friends and they told two friends. So when you're in public and you're seeing everybody, if you're having a bad day, don't yell at anybody, because you never know who you're yelling at indirectly. So always be nice when you're in public, you're on stage, you're in front of the camera. And we've all seen we've seen politicians and leaders make stupid goofs because they forgot they were on camera, or they forgot that everybody carries a cell phone nowadays, a camera. We see them forget it all the time. So in the same way, you have to think of yourself, if you're out in the public, you're always on. There's always a potential cell phone on you. I mean, the lens on you. There's always a potential microphone on. You're always on. So be careful. And as Jay has alluded to this again, listen. Above all, listen, because you can't solve somebody's problem if you don't take the time to listen to hear what it is. Be a good date. Don't talk about yourself. Who's been on a date and you sit down and the person there starts talking and don't seem to draw breath for several hours. They talk about themselves and about themselves and about themselves and about themselves. And then eventually they might come around going, oh my gosh, you know what? I realize I'm sorry. I have been doing all the talking and all about me tonight. I'm sorry. It's your turn. What do you think of me? Be a good date. Don't talk about yourself. Another good venue for communication and for networking is public speaking. This is a really, really good marketing device. It's also one of the best networking things. If you can get yourself and take the time, and there are ways to do this, become the expert in your field. So if you are in tourism, be an expert in tourism. Be an expert in indigenous tourism. Be an expert on your part of the world. Be an expert whether you're on the northwest coast of BC or on the coast of Vancouver Island, or you're in the middle of the Okanagan, or you're up. It doesn't matter where you are. Be the expert. And speak like one, talk like one, get in front of people, and keep your message on brand. If you do the communication brief work, this will keep your message focused and on brand and not go off on tangents. The biggest killer to delivering messages is getting sidetracked and going off on tangents. Be dynamic, but not bombastic. Learn the skills, acquire the skills. There are all kinds of places to learn public speaking skills. There are, honestly, if one of the best places I can suggest to learn really good public speaking skills is TED Talks. Google the best ones. Now, some of them aren't very good speakers, but the really good ones are fantastic. One of my favorite ones was by this guy who was talking about, I'm going to get you how to teach you how to love classical music in 20 minutes. And he did it. And he did it in the most incredible way. His name is Xander something. But if you just put in Xander love classical music, it'll come up. And it's a great TED Talk. Very worthwhile to watch. But all of the good speakers on TED Talks are really are among the best. And put it on video. In these days now with COVID, with fewer and with right now no venues, so put it on video. Invite some friends. If we're allowed to have smaller gatherings, get some friends, or don't just do it to a camera. Set something up, put your talk on video, and then put it online. So now we know what we want to say. Let's go out and network. Let's get it out in front of people. This is not the same as marketing. Let's just start the buzz. Networking is creating buzz, sideways buzz, circular buzz around, as opposed to marketing, which tends to want to impose buzz or come up under. So this is creating buzz. It's not easy. Some people are naturally great with people, and just we've all seen them. They walk into a room and they're immediately at ease, and they have people circling. You see them at parties, and people are all around them, and things like that. So some people just have a magnetism to them that just draws people. That's a natural gift. You can develop these skills. You absolutely can develop these skills, and it's mostly about. Most of the time, it's about focus. Now. Jay and I recently discovered, or rediscovered, we knew the guy Seth Godin, but he also has a book, and in his book about marketing, he talks about something that I think has got a lot of value. It's similar to niche marketing, which I know that Jay has talked about. But he refers to it as your smallest viable market. And this, I think, is especially a good concept. I'm going to speak more about this in the marketing section, but I'll give you a little taste. The smallest viable market is, and I know that Jay's talked about this, what's the minimum number of customers that you can get that can sustain your business? And then the smallest that can sustain it, and then from there to slowly grow from it. So rather than getting overwhelmed and saying, oh my God, I've got to reach all of these people in all these places, where's your smallest viable market? And then find ways of networking with them. In this case, your smallest viable market, maybe you network them by going to trade shows. Who would love your product or service? And here's another aspect of networking. You don't have to see everybody as a potential customer or client. You can also see them as a potential ally or partner. Partners, obviously, is the deeper one. Somebody says, hey, we can do something together. But an ally is just somebody who says, you know what, I really believe in you. I'm not your market, but I know who your market is, and I want to help you because I really, there's something about you that I think is kind of special. And that's good. And that's a good thing. Allies are very, very, can be very, very important. Everyone you meet is a potential contact. Everyone. And they will talk to others. So always be on. Never speak disparagingly about anything or anyone. Go home, go home and chop wood, pound sand, jump up and down, do 1,000 push-ups. If you get frustrated, vent. That's fine. Don't vent in public, no matter how pissed off you might get. Don't vent in public. So in networking, when you do meet people, and one of the things about networks, and I actually heard this not that long ago, and somebody said, "I'm so tired of networking events. Everybody out there is doing the same thing. They're all trying to sell me, and I'm there trying to sell them, and we end up not selling anybody." I think Jay has mentioned this as well. That's what happens when you go to network when all you're doing is pitching. And there was a bullet point in one of the previous slides that I didn't read out, but it was there, and it's catch, don't pitch. I used to play baseball when I was a kid. In the first season or two, I played outfield and I played third base. Then the next season, I was catcher, which I didn't want to do, but I got elected to be a catcher, and I fell in love with the position because you're always in the game, always. Yes, you're calling the shots with the pitcher, but you can have a pitcher. He could be in for 2 or 3 innings, and he's out. You're still there. They sub out outfielders and infielders. What I liked about catching is that you're always in the game. Every pitch, you're there, and think of the same analogy here. Catch, don't pitch, because when you're prepared to catch and listen and really absorb what's going around you, when you catch the ball, if you think of a catcher, when the ball comes in, the catcher can then decide he's going to throw it back to the pitcher. He's going to throw it down to first base to see if he can catch the guy who took too big a lead off, or he's going to throw it to second base because the guy's trying to steal the base. The catcher is actually the one on the field who controls the game. So think of yourself as a catcher. And again, by listening and catching, you will recognize and hear a need or a desire, and then you can fulfill it. But you can't hear of that if you're not listening. Appeal to pride and ego. If it makes them feel good, if it makes them feel right or fulfilled, they will act. Right? People act in their own interest, not yours. This is just a variation on what's in it for me, but this is one of the key motivators. And this is, I mean, this comes from straight out of psychological studies. People act in their own interests, not yours, some more than others. There are altruistic people in the world. Absolutely, there are. For every, I'm trying to think of, anyway, a better example will come to me. The one I'm thinking of is not very good, so I'll come back to it. When you are meeting with people, flattery and compliments are good, but they have to be sincere, because people are smart enough. People know when they're getting snowed. Somebody said, somebody once asked, what's the difference between flattery and compliments? That's easy, dear boy. A compliment is the stating of a pleasant truth. Flattery is the stating of a very pleasant untruth. And that's where flattery can get you into trouble. But good compliments, if you're with somebody and you know, and then you've done your research and you really like who they are and what they can do, it's okay to appeal to pride and ego. Nothing wrong with it at all. As again, if it's sincere and if it's honest. When you speak to people and you're talking about your business, you can give choices to them. Well, I can help you this way and this way and this way. Too many, but not too many choices. As strange, as counterintuitive as that may sound. There was a jam company about 10, 15 years ago, and they thought they're going to take care of the market. It was the organic market. It was a niche market. It wasn't going up against Smuckers or Kraft. It was a niche market. I said, but we're going to go out there because nobody else in our market is. They're all doing 3 or 4 different types of jam. We're going to do 30, and they put it out there and they couldn't sell anything. Nothing. The sales were terrible. I said, we don't understand. We've got every flavor of jam you can imagine. Why aren't people buying them? And they hired some people and they did some studies, and they found out that there was too much choice. People couldn't decide, so they bought none. They went to the other one and going, well, I only have to choose between 4 or 5 here. That I can do. I can't choose 1 out of 30. If you think of when Baskin Robbins, 30 wonderful flavors, they only sold about the same 4, 5, 6 flavors. The rest was just marketing. Just, wow, you can find it here. Most people still went in and bought chocolate, vanilla, or strawberry. But when this jam company, dropped from 30 choices to 10 choices, of those 4 were constant and the other 5 or 6 would rotate, sales went through the roof. Self-interest. What's in it for me? So what can I do for you? Right? It's a two-way street. Give as much as you get, actually give more. Yes, you want to be there and you want to get business, but again, if you think of the focus of how can I serve this person? How can I make their life easier? It comes back. It does. It sounds counterintuitive, but it actually does. When you meet somebody, follow up quickly with them. If you meet them in a coffee shop, I'm going to say this because it seems pretty self-evident. Don't go anywhere without a business card. Or a way that you can immediately email, or either email or tap phones or whatever to give them your contact information. Always have contact information readily and easily accessible. And then when you do meet somebody and you have exchanged business contact information, follow up quickly. Don't wait a week. If you meet somebody today, contact them tomorrow saying, hey, it was great meeting you or seeing you yesterday. Just wanted to touch base or whatever. And then stay in touch after that. But do the initial follow-up quickly. I know that in one of Jay's, and this is a really good one, is if you're at a big gathering and there's somebody there that you wanted to meet or you wanted to talk to, and all you got was their business card because they had it out, you didn't really have a chance to talk to them, that's okay. Call them, send them a text saying, hey, really enjoyed talking to you yesterday at the West Coast Golf Course Symposium or whatever it might be. They're meeting so many people they won't remember, and it's okay. So you contact them anyway. and that's part of the game. When you do contact these people, keep track. Build your database. So keep track of who they are. When did you first contact them? When did you second contact? When should you be due to contact them again? So track not only who you've contacted and when, but have a plan for future contact, whether that's through social media or emails or texting or whatever. Now, again, or say, you know what? Hey, and I'd really like to talk to you. I understand that that you're across the province. Let's do a Zoom or a FaceTime or whatever it might be. Meet as often as you can face to face. If you can't meet face to face, meet Zoom to Zoom. Take the important ones, whether they're allies or potential clients or existing clients or whatever. Take them out. Hey, let me buy you lunch. It doesn't have to be a big extravagant lunch. I'm not talking about a $500 meal at the fanciest restaurant in Vancouver. Take them out for coffee, lunch. They'll appreciate it. It's a very small investment, and the returns are good. Building goodwill between you and your contacts is absolutely key, and that from the get-go. And I'm not saying that you offer everybody coffee or breakfast or lunch right after you meet them. That takes time, but after you've developed the relationship, you can. But always having in mind that that's where the relationship is going to go. Be prepared to invest in your relationships, the good ones. And you know what? Does that mean sometimes you're going to fund a relationship that doesn't go anywhere? Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. You don't make every sale. Not every business lunch has a return, but it's still a valuable and necessary investment in your business. When you do talk about what you can do or how you can solve their problem, be shameless about it. It's about your business. As long as it's not empty bragging, as long as it's not Trump saying, this is the best thing in the history of these things. If you're going to tell them that it's the best, or if you're going to tell them about your business, make sure that anything you say is you can actually deliver. Because if you tell them you can and they hire you and you don't deliver because you can't, you're not only you're going to be dead in the water with that client. Word gets around. As one of the other things too is that if you have a customer who likes you, they'll tell their friends. If you've pissed them off, they'll tell the world. Right? Especially now with Facebook and social media. So the other aspect of networking are the multipliers and the feeders. The multipliers are people who can lead you to clients. For example, say you want to get a sponsorship deal with Nike for your pro shop. But you don't know anybody and you've been having trouble getting through to Nike. But you meet somebody who's you meet somebody who knows somebody who works at Nike or things like this. It's somebody who can lead you to, or hey, you know what? I just did a deal with Nike last week. Let me introduce you to the merchandising guy here, or the sponsorship guy here. So these are the multipliers, people who can lead you to customers or clients. Cultivate them as well. Everybody that you meet is a potential contributor to your success. So, for example, one contact that can lead you to many. For example, you've put up a spa retreat, a nature retreat to get away from it all, and you're gonna come back to nature, and you're gonna have this wonderful experience, this very natural get away from the big world. You might want to go to a convention, not of other spa owners where everybody's going to be competing for that. You might want to go to a convention of physiotherapists or physiotherapy equipment, because then you can go there and meet health people. Say, do you ever recommend to any of your clients that getting away from the city would be a good idea? Oh, you do? Well, here, let me talk to you about it. This is one of the things where, again, with limited budgets, if you have a limited budget and you want to advertise or contact people connected to your business, how can you get how can you get at it sideways? Because again, if you did have a golf course and there's going to be a convention on golf courses, you're going to be there competing against every other golf course in British Columbia or the West Coast or Washington, Oregon. That's what your competition is going to be. But what if you went to a place that was for people 55 plus? And now all of a sudden you're there, or activities for 55 plus, or the beds or whatever. You're going to someone who say, you know what, have we got a course for you? It's gentle. It's a good walking course if you want to be active, but it's a gentle walking course. Again, that's an example, but go where your competition doesn't think to go. That puts you not necessarily in direct line of sight with your potential customers, but in these multipliers. This is a really, really good networking venue that is underutilized. A few years ago, I was working with a healthcare client, and a local association, a local media was going to put out an online and print version of a print version of, I'm trying to remember what the product was, but it was sporting equipment. And I had a client, and he said, "Well, I have to be in that?" And I said, "Well, why?" And he said, "Because everybody's going to be in that." I said, "Mm-hmm. Who are you going to be up against?" "Oh, yeah, well, there's going to be the big guys." And I said, "Yeah, and you're a small guy. So why would you go in there and to put yourself in a place where you have to scream that loudly, and you'll never be able to scream as loud as they can? If it's sporting equipment, why don't you, instead of going to that one, go to one that talks about aging and how to reduce the effects of aging." And now you're there with sporting equipment, and you can go in there with the kind of sporting equipment that fits that profile. And you're going to be the only one there. Doesn't that make more sense? It's the same thing, earlier, and we'll talk about it more when we talk about advertising and branding. You should look at what your competition is doing and then forget about it. I had a client a few years ago who said, here are the websites my competition is doing. I want mine to look like that. Well, I said, well, why would you do that? He said, because they're number one in their market, so they really know what they're doing. I said, yes, so you're going to copy the number one in your market, which puts you where? It puts you there as a copy of the market leader, as opposed to developing your own look, your own feel, and your own unique selling proposition to make yourself look as an alternative to that. So I always say, yes, see what your competition is doing, and then deliberately don't do what they're doing. Otherwise, you're just muddying the waters. If nobody can tell you from your competitors, that's wrong. So if you have people say that your advertising should look like your advertising category, absolutely wrong. You don't want to look like everybody else in your category. You get lost, especially if you're just starting out. So deliberately look unlike your customers, and you can be a little cheeky about it. We talked about outdoor earlier. One of my favorite outdoor billboards was a few years ago. This is when veganism and vegetarianism was becoming very popular, and whatever you like. But there was a steakhouse in the city, and they've been around a long time. They were starting to lose. They were starting to lose customers to the vegetarian market. There's nothing they could do about that. People were giving up meat. They were also losing the customers to a couple of newer steakhouses and a couple of newer restaurants. So I wish I had been involved in this. I wasn't. It was a friend of mine who was brilliant, and they came out with a instead of saying beautiful salad and all of that, the usual thing like mouth-watering, blah 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 blah. He just came out with a very simple headline. It was a picture of a steak on a grill, and it said "Horrifying Vegetarian Since 1987," and their sales went through the roof because meat eaters loved it. Meat eaters love the fact that here is a company doing this to the anti-meat crowd, and it also said that we are the original. We were here. We were here first, and we still do it best. It was a really effective billboard. The feeders are paid commission salespeople. That's self-explanatory. You starting out, you may not want to do that. Although commissioned, if you have a product where there is enough commission, so that your salesperson doesn't have to sell like a billion of them. If your price point is at a point where a commission salesperson can make a decent living, it's nothing wrong with going that route at all. It can be, especially on the commission side. Get distributors on side. Go talk to the distributors. It's, I know that sounds silly, but sometimes people forget it. But I'm just the distributor. Yeah, but you know what? Those distributors are often have a really, really lot of influence in buyers. The distributors are going to go like sort of like almost like the hub. They know everything that's going on in their business, and they can be really, really useful if you get them on your side. Spend time to cultivate those relationships. And to a lesser extent, same thing with if you have a product, store chains. That's a bit of a harder nut to crack. But if you can talk to even the local buyers and the local distributors, it can also be, and that things are starting to shift now. You see here, for example, in the food on the food aspect of things, where there's a really more and more places like Thrifties here are accepting food products onto the shelves without the huge shelf fees that most companies have to pay. They give the local people a bit of a break. You still have to pay a shelf fee, but not as much as if you're a good. And there's talking about business ideas. When I was in Montreal, I worked with the Northern Cree there with some people I knew, including a friend who was a professional chef, and she was the first one hired. The Northern Cree wanted to take traditional Cree foods and put it in the hands of a very contemporary modern chef, which Marika was, and her job was to go that and take those things and create a fusion between nouvelle cuisine and traditional, and create new dishes using traditional Cree foods. And it was launched in Montreal at Place Ville-Marie, and it was really, really terrific. I tasted a lot of things I had never tasted before. Some I loved. A couple, smoked black bear, I don't think I'll ever enjoy again, but it was worth a try. Ptarmigan was good, and the porcupine was delicious. But that's and the nice thing about porcupine, it comes with its own toothpicks, so that's kind of cool. But they were then going to package these foods and put them in supermarkets, but they couldn't get them in. For it to really take off, they had to get them into one of the major brands, and they couldn't do it. They got them into some of the smaller specialty shops, but it wasn't enough to create a new industry. Now, this, I think, was an idea ahead of its time. I think something like that would work much better now. There's much greater awareness of a greater appreciation of natural foods, a greater appreciation of different types of non-mainstream foods, and I think, as I said, I think it was an idea whose time before it had come. So this going to wind up here. Where am I? Is that it? No, been there. Sorry. All right. So where do you meet these people? Join organizations. When you do join an organization, take an active role, join the committees, join the subgroups, attend industry and government conferences, and as I alluded to earlier, go to conferences that don't look like it's in your immediate ambit. Go to those. Go where nobody else is. Attend conferences that are in the client's field. So if you have a client who's in the field of who's in the field of clothing manufacture, then go to their industry events and associations too. Then the more you know about your client's business, the more the more benefit you can be to them. Work the membership list. All of these clubs and organizations have a membership list. Work the list, get the emails. Don't be shy. Reach out, talk to them. Be a guest speaker. They're always looking for somebody to speak. You probably won't get paid for it. You don't have to. That's not the purpose. The purpose is to be the guest speaker so you can get in front of everybody and speak. Another really, really good networking venue. These things we talked. We've kind of addressed already. So this is a wrap up. I won't reread the wrap up. Now, in this time of Zoom working or net Zooming, I haven't figured out which of those two to go. There's a few things that I want to have just a little bit of things to talk about that. In this time, though, use your phone, whether it's voice, text, FaceTime. Stay in touch. Zoom and Skype are your new friends. Can your services or products be offered or sold online? If they can, get a commerce site up and running. Can you bring complementary companies together? Do you have natural partners? Because running an online store can be expensive. But what if a bunch of you got together? What if you had somebody who was doing tourism? One was the golf course. One was a fishing charter, and other like things, and then so get together and market together. Pool your resources. Marketing is expensive. Pool your resources as much as you can. Compare notes with them. Meet as often as possible. Help each other. Help each other. Help each other. Even if you're not in the same business, you all learn things from going forward. If you're going to have a meeting here's a little thing. If you're going to have a meeting with someone and you're going to their place, send coffee so that when you get there, the coffee's already there. Right? Little things like that. Okay, so in Zoom working, and in a minute, Jay, do you have that particular video? Jay, I know you've got your mic off. Do you know the video I'm talking about? You know the video I'm talking about?
I will find it for you, sir.
The Zoom meeting one.
A video conference call in real life?
I think that's the one, yeah. And then mute your mic.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for being here on time. Paul? Hey, Paul, can you hear me?
I can't hear you.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hey, guys.
Hey, Tyler.
Sorry I'm late. Having a hard time connecting.
1 second. Paul's having a sound issue.
I can't hear you. Try adjusting your output settings.
Can you hear me?
It's the gear icon.
Tyler, are you on hotel Wi-Fi?
Yeah, why?
Never mind, I got it. I just had to change a few settings.
Great. Maybe we can get started then. Oh, great.
I think your mic is pitch speakers.
My mic?
Do you have headphones?
You want me to put them on?
No, I want you to smell them. No, I want you to put them on. Hey, Beth.
Hey, everyone. Sorry I'm late. I had to download a new version of the platform.
You should plan extra time for the updates. There's pretty much one every time.
Sounds like someone just joined.
Hey guys, it's John. I had to call in. I'm stuck in traffic. Have I missed anything yet?
No, it would have been nice for you to join the rest of us, but we'll see you when you get home. All right, while everyone is here, finally, Tyler, do you have that financial report?
Well, it's been the last few weeks updating our books, and I got some great news for you. Schedule from this point last year. We had a great Q1.
We lost Tyler, I think.
Am I frozen?
Hey, Trip, I think we lost Tyler.
Yeah, I know, we lost Tyler.
Hey guys, it sounded like Tyler was cutting out.
We know, John. All right, while we wait on Tyler, why don't we go over all of the reports from Beth, are you with us?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, everyone, I know some of you have to leave soon, but I just wanted to go over a couple of the queries before. Okay, excuse me. My wife's out of town this week. Daddy's, I'm so sorry. Okay, you just spilt grape juice on the carpet. Daddy is in a meeting. Tyler, can you go over the numbers one more time, please?
I thought Beth had an adjustment. Hey, Beth.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, that's my iTunes.
Hey guys, hang on. I'm gonna join in. Hey, what platform are you guys on? Skype? FaceTime?
It's in the invite.
Oh, never mind. I see it. It's right there in the invite.
Okay, now I can see everybody.
Let's reschedule and let's just do a regular old conference call, okay? Paul, can you have David send out the 9-digit passcode?
I heard you.
Yeah, he's been here the whole time.
All right, everybody. I'll see you later. Like a lot of video conference calls, this one sucked, but it wouldn't have had we been using Zoom. Zoom will host over...
All right. We can lose that. So as we do Zoom, there's some do's and don'ts to Zooming. As long as we're still using this, and as I said, I think even when we get back to a fully open economy, I do believe that there's going to be a lot still of meetings by Zoom. I mean, I've been using Zoom for a few years because I have clients in Ontario and still in the East Coast and places. So there you go. Dress appropriately, listen closely, speak clearly and speak up. The mute button, learn to use it. Be on time, find a quiet room, don't speak over others, all of those things. Don't interrupt. All of these things. So smile, you're on camera. Hi, how you doing? So glad I could be here. You can be intimate too. Strangely enough, you actually can. If I come in closely enough, each of you might seem like I'm really just talking to one of you at a time. And that can be effective too. But when you know that you're speaking to more, then you can kind of come back and make yourself more expansive. But the closer you come in, the more intimate you are, which you should be aware of. Here's some of the things that I put together. Watch your eyes. Watch where you look. As I mentioned this earlier, right now I'm trying to most of the evening to look at you through that. Because if I'm doing this, I'm not looking at you anymore, and my eyes can look shifty if I'm doing stuff like this. I can look shifty, and if my eyes look shifty, so can I. And that's something you need to be aware of. You need to look confident. You need to look confident, and you need to look engaged. And you do that by looking into the camera and not by looking at the screen. So that's one. Watch your eyes where you look. Yeah. Don't shift your eyes around. Again, makes you look shifty. Stay focused on the camera. Make sure that you're not too low in the frame. That's one of the things where you see this sometimes. Oh, hi, we all here? Or this. Or one that you will often see, and if I can get this done in a way. All right, so I call this the nostril view. All right, nobody wants to see up your nose. Trust me, nobody wants to see up your nose. So elevate your computer a little bit so that you're looking straight onto the camera. You're straight into it. So, right? Okay. Or if you have to change it, then do it this way so you're looking up at the camera if you have to. But just adjust your computer, your camera, so you're doing that. Don't blink a lot for the same reasons. Don't drink water, juice, tea, or coffee. It makes you look disinterested, bored. I've had this off camera. So, but if I'm doing this, if I'm talking to you, I don't look like I'm engaged. So don't do that. Speak loud enough to be heard, but not too loud that it hurts people with earbuds in. So I'm trying to keep my voice modulated. You don't want to speak this loud. I moved back so I wouldn't hurt anybody's ears. Enunciate clearly. Machines and mics can garble speech, especially the mics, because these are not professional quality mics like you're listening to BBC video. So enunciate clearly. Above all, as I said, keep smiling. Smile at people. They like it. It warms you up. People like to be smiled at. It gives them a warm feeling. Networking is the gift that keeps on taking. It never stops, right? It really is. Everyone you meet is a potential contact. This can be very rewarding. It can be very enjoyable. It can be very tiring. It can be very time consuming, but it's absolutely vital. And people say, well, where are my networking opportunities? The moment you step out of your front door, you are networking. I hope some of these things we've talked about in terms of communication and networking have been helpful to you. I hope you can put them to use as you build your businesses. I want to thank you very much for joining me tonight. I really look forward to working with you tomorrow night, and where I'm going to give you some techniques that you can use. These are the same techniques that actors use when they're starting out. It's not, don't worry, nobody's going to have to turn the Sylvester Stallone, you know what I'm saying? Or you're not going to do it. But I'm going to show you some actors who I really like and respect. But I'm going to give you some techniques that you can actually use, and you don't have to become a professional actor to do it. These are all techniques kind of based on, fake it till you make it. And how you can, but if I'm not a successful entrepreneur, but I play one on TV. Well, that's what you're going to start with. You're going to start playing a really highly successful entrepreneur, and you will get there. But confidence breeds confidence, and there are things that you can learn to do to walk into a room and not be intimidated by it, and to make it work for you. So these will be some techniques. We'll have some fun with it. We'll try to. I'll show you some improv games that you can do that will help you. It's not just about fun and games. It's about helping you develop and build your business. This is Jay will tell you that such a huge part of building a business is starting out as an entrepreneurialism is you. Your product is important, your service is important, but you are the most important asset your company has. So you need to see yourself as an asset, develop yourself as an asset, so that you can weaponize yourself as a business asset. You're the only you. You're the only one. There can be 100,000 golf courses. There can be hundreds of tourism destinations. There can be hundreds of indigenous art, indigenous textiles. There are many of these. There's only one you. So you need to use that and use every aspect and all of your strengths. And that's what we're going to be focusing on. Thank you very much. Have a great evening. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Thank you, Lex. That was awesome. Entertaining as usual. And tomorrow will be even more entertaining when we go through some of the improv sessions. I've done it with Lex on a number of occasions, and it's probably one of the more enjoyable, but I think most of the sessions have been pretty enjoyable. But certainly the perspective of play acting your role as a business person, taking on your personality, how to get people to say yes, how to carry yourself and make sure that you're taken seriously, people listen to you, and it's also a great deal of fun. So we'll see you tomorrow, 6 o'clock, for the second of Lex's workshops on communication networking, improv, play acting, etc. It's not something you will ever learn in business school. It's very different. And that's why we've included it into this series, and it's awesome. You should enjoy it very much. So until tomorrow night, stay well, stay safe, and good night, and we'll see you tomorrow night.